Well, good morning, everybody. It is the 9th of January, 2026. It's Friday. It's 10 minutes after 11 in the morning. And, oh, I got to get my hat, don't I? Wow, Candace Owens. I mean, if you guys, she's got a new video out. And let's see, I wrote down the title of it. And I'm going to probably put it down in the comments if I can do that. And it is... The Past is Prologue, Why Charlie Kirk Was Murdered. Don't, and then on the, what do they call it, the thumbnail, it says, don't F asterisk with cats. And I'll tell you my personal experience that actually aligns right up with this in, what happened to me in my personal experience in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it concerns cats and it concerns Christianity or so. But anyway, Candace Owens, I tell you what, it's like she's been gone for some while. I'm subscribed to her, and I wasn't getting anything except maybe a couple shorts from old things from her before. But now she's come up with a longer video, and it's almost like she needed the time, I would think, to do some of this research. And this video is just phenomenal. It's like really... I mean, if you're an older person like myself, because she's returning, she's referring to a lot of this older news, maybe back from the time of the Oliver North and things like that. Some things that she didn't mention, of course, and I'm going to add some things. And a lot of this goes along with another video I'm going to try to put up by the Young Turks. And I think it's something like an emission of Megyn Kelly or something. I tell you, I mean... Even with this stuff that went on in Venezuela, which it's like you think you're stupid when you're starting to look at this stuff and say, man, it's also tied to Israel. How much is tied to Israel? And it's like this was the case beforehand. And I remember all these ties, back in, I don't know, even in 2007 or actually maybe before that. Actually before that, and obviously you can go back much before that. And it's actually very, very sad. It's very sad to see that the United States is nothing but a useful idiot puppet, and the real power is in Israel. And a lot of people haven't escaped that, noticing that, and so a lot of them really suck up to Israel. I mean, Ted Cruz is another example. He knows who's more powerful. I've seen people like that. And they just throw all their morality away and they just suck up to whoever's the most powerful because they can gain from that. I've seen that, just in normal society, like when you work with in some corporation, that deals with many millions, tens of millions of dollars, and somebody in there, and they know the truth. They've even told it to you to your face. And yet when it comes to the company, they will ignore the truth because they can get ahead with that. And it's like, what the heck? I mean, at the very least, even when you notice something is very corrupt, you just stay out of it. You try to get involved in it and you'll go down. It's even like a person I know that he discovered a bunch of drugs. He was in charge of a warehouse and he discovered, that the drugs were being shipped through there. And then he reported it to the very top person in the thing. And guess what? They fired him. And it's like, oh, wow. And the strange thing is, they are tied to Israel too. And this was just in an island in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And, even my time down there, there's some drugs that were getting trafficked through there. And even, I don't know if any of those drugs actually went through Venezuela, but they were coming somewhere from South America. And I've told you guys, because I've seen this and I lived there and I saw this and I've talked to people involved in that. People were killed. They were shot and killed, customs officers. And it was like because people had some drugs. They were fishermen, maybe like on these same boats that Donald Trump is blowing up. They were fishermen, but they had no fish. And actually what they were smuggling, and I've told you guys before, for some odd reason, nobody has said this, not anybody in any of these other videos, but these people were smuggling diesel fuel because they could get it far cheaper in Venezuela, and they would bring that up through the Caribbean, and they would sell it to the resorts, and when you see these videos of Donald Trump, they show all these like canisters all through and I can almost guarantee you 100% those canisters are filled with diesel fuel, and they're selling it to the resorts because it's far cheaper than buying it from the government because of the tax on those. And some of these fishermen, and I'm talking even about the boats that are a little bit bigger than that, some of them do have drugs, and they're trafficking that to other people, just smaller amounts, because it's some good money for them, really good money. And of course, these people, whoever are getting these drugs, and strange thing is, I've even seen Israelis down there in these little islands, and seen them on the dock. And I was sitting there on a dock and waiting, and then I see this Israeli guy, big guy, obviously from the military, and he's got Lion of Zion on there, and all this tattoos on his arm, and all. He's got his sunglasses, not really talking to other people there. Obviously, he's with some other people there, and he's on the dock, of course, and I don't know. And that's all I really know about it. But I just saw this guy was an Israeli, and he was a military type of guy. I mean, because I've been in the military myself, and you know how these people sort of act, and these type of people. But that's, like I said, I don't have any evidence on that right there, but I've got evidence on other things that I've seen with my own eyes over there. So a lot of this stuff, what Candace Owens is saying in this video, it awakened a lot of things for me. And I'll tell you even about the cats, the fact that she put that up with her cats. So it's like, for me, watching this video from Candace Owens, knowing with my experiences, and I'm putting links together, and I said, it's like it really triggered me. And that's why I'm trying to express to you guys, you should watch this video. And so she has, another mega video in my belief. And she exposed, and I've mentioned a lot of these videos too, like this huge amount of child trafficking, child sex trafficking, and just the children themselves, the babies, the newborn babies, a lot of trafficking in that. And there are people have exposed, and nobody likes to talk about it. So that, like, even when it goes into your memory, a lot of you that are going to be watching this, don't worry that you're going to get nightmares, because your memory, your own mind will block this out, because you don't really want to hear this stuff. You don't want to remember this stuff. It is so unappealing, and it is so dastardly and evil that your mind will block it out. It's very strange. I don't know if any of you have noticed this, but when you hear a lot of these evil things, and they're so bad that oftentimes your mind just blocks it out, and you forget that you've ever heard it. Until a lot of times when you're reminded by some other incident, some other news report, or somebody else talking about it, and it fits almost identically to what you've seen or heard before. Very, very shocking stuff. So it's not just that they're trafficking these baby children and stuff, to maybe so-called wanting families that don't have children. They have even more dastardly stuff. And I don't even want to repeat it to you guys. And Maybe I've said it in other videos, and it is sickening. You wouldn't watch my videos anymore if I told you like some of the reports of what they're doing to newborn children, and it is very sickening. So, and you can't even believe it. And a lot of this is in Ukraine. A lot of this is going through Ukraine, and you would think that nobody would do this to children and things. And when I worked in a prison, some things that you heard that happened to 2-month-old babies and things. It's a really sick stuff. And okay, but let's go into other things here. So, but these Christian evangelicals, and I guess Jerry Falwell, very much engrossed into this stuff too. Candace Owens exposes some really shocking stuff in here. And a lot of this stuff, you can trace back all of the evidence to surround this. I don't know. Candace did a lot of work on researching this, and she did work on making this video and not really freaking out. I think maybe Candace Owens, we didn't see too much of her lately, because I think she was getting kind of freaked out about the attacks on her, and using language that Candace Owens would never use, and she was normally really under self-control. And I think a few times there she was kind of getting a little bit out of control. So maybe she just stepped back for maybe a couple weeks, and now she's back and she's in real full form. It's this video, anyway, I have to keep promoting the video. It's really something. And she even does a video, because she puts out these things and she gets so many views, and there's millions of people that actually watch her videos, and some people do contact her and they have stories, and sometimes she meets with these peoples and gets these stories and tries to get even evidence if she can. That's how she met this Mitch Snow. And a lot of that stuff has really been checking out. They've been making mistakes on the other side, TPUSA, and it's just been validating what this Mitch Snow was saying. So it's not like these people are paid to be fakes and to screw her up. And we already know that there's a lot of money in attacking Candace Owens. You get paid a lot of money if you make videos attacking Candace Owens, and that's already been proven. Jimmy Dore even exposed that, and of people exposing this network of how you can get money to attack Candace Owens. It's really incredible. Wow. But anyway, let's keep on going this. So some of this is even tied with Epstein. And I didn't know of Epstein because I've mentioned videos myself to you guys in videos that the Caribbean in the past, maybe back in the 1980s at least, was used for weapons trafficking from, U.S. weapons going to Israel, and then Israel. And Bibi Netanyahu has even said this in the past couple of years, or maybe the last year or so. He's even told Donald Trump, even in this administration, Donald Trump has been there like 1 year now, and he's even told Donald Trump, oh, don't you do this, make us look like the bad guys, have us do this, let us be the proxy for you. And this was what was happening, I think, with a lot of the weapons trade through the Caribbean, and maybe around the Reagan years and all. And I'm not saying Reagan himself was necessarily involved in this. I don't know. My memory, I forget a lot about this stuff. And, you'd have to research this. Maybe Candace Owens would do this. But the weapons would go to Israel, and then Israel would send them to the rebel groups that the United States was supporting in South America to overthrow governments. Oh, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Oh, God. That was like in the Nicaragua and things. A lot of stuff was even gone through my University of Washington. There were protests and things, about the U.S., the CIA overthrowing governments and sending assets. And I think it was even a student that went down there and that was killed. That's why people were protesting on mine, because it was a student from the University of Washington who went down there and was killed by pro-CIA people. And the guy was mostly just there protesting and maybe even getting information. So, yeah, I mean, oh man, I tell you, this was really, and I was like, watching this video. So, she mentions also, I've mentioned before, remember, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, and how he was used like that. See, they even were trying a lot of the time to use Scott Ritter. He was Major Scott Ritter at that time. The next rank would be Lieutenant Colonel. But he didn't make it to Lieutenant Colonel because Scott Ritter was not playing the game. He wasn't lying. He was supposed to lie about weapons and all this kind of stuff. And he didn't want to lie. So that's why they never promoted him. And he said he was fired a few times, and, he got into some deep trouble from the military, and they had to hire him back because he was telling the truth. And he did a video recently talking about that back then, even when you tell the truth, they had a lot more compassion for you then than they do now. So they found out he was telling the truth. And then, of course, he got put back in his position. He didn't get promotions, of course. But nowadays, you get fired and you're gone, and they will disgrace you. And I've seen some things in my time alone. I mean, even lower enlisted people, if you, for example, I mentioned already before, the highest ranking military person on planet Earth was on Fort Bragg, and he was in the officers club and had some drinks. He was pulled over by an MP, and this never made it in real news. So this is kind of an exclusive sort of thing for you guys to hear this, because I worked amongst these circles, so I knew this kind of thing. And as a matter of fact, I was made to sign documents to say I would not talk about some of these things. And here I am now. I'm wondering if they're going to come and get me from the USA. But anyway, the highest ranking general in the world, basically. And you can figure out what that position is. And maybe if I tell you the year, which I think was 1986 at that time, you could even find out what general that is. But anyway, this guy had some drinks on the officers' club, and doing the regular checks on, Fort Bragg especially. And I was supposed to go to Fort Bragg. That was, anyway. But anyway, the MPs stopped him. And I think they did a breathalyzer. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, he was found to have been driving under the influence of alcohol. And they wrote him a ticket, and nothing happened to the general, of course. But the MP, I don't know what he was, a private first class, maybe, or maybe he was just a corporal. I have not the faintest idea. Anyway, he was kicked out of the military with a dishonorable discharge and can probably never get a really good job anymore in the rest of his life because of that. Incredible. That's how that works out, though. And keep going here. Going off on a tangent. So, what Candace talked about, and I remember the name, was Ban Ki-moon, and a lot of you out there never heard of Ban Ki-moon, and but this guy was from South Korea. He was a Christian, supposedly, and as far as I knew, that was about it. And he had a huge movement, lots of money and lots of power, and strange thing, it was also tied to Israel. And I was thinking Israel isn't tied to the Orient, but Candace was mentioning this as well. But I didn't, you can watch this, and there's a lot more. She doesn't talk about everything. It looks like, I think the point she was trying to make about talking about Ban Ki-moon, and Ban Ki-moon was tied to like Christian, what does it say? I think she said, I'm almost positive she was saying that also to this, it was like with Jerry Falwell and this, I think it's called Liberty University. She was talking about that and what was actually going on there to a large extent. And there's a lot of corruption in Christianity, I have to tell you guys, unfortunately. And see, that is the worst part of it. And that's maybe the main point of what Candace was getting at in her video, that, and I don't like to use this word because I don't want people to get the wrong impression, but they're using Christians as useful idiots. And a lot of the Christians in the higher up ranks are actually a part of all of this too, under somebody else, and you can find out who the big blanket people are that are running this sort of a thing. And it's very shocking, and Candace really better watch her back. I'll get to that too. Well, I'll get to that right now. Israel is behind it all too. Wow. So, and what she was getting at is, it looks like they're trying to create a clone, a twin of the Ban Ki-moon movement in an organization called TPUSA. And it looks like, bring it to the next level. And we've heard that terminology already a few times. And that's basically what they're trying to mean, is to bring it to the next level, TPUSA, to the Ban Ki-moon level. Wow. And it was like Ban Ki-moon Incorporated. And so these Christian movements, it's not just that, not just TPUSA, but Jerry Falwell and others. And they're controlled through Israel. Some of these people, like I think it was this Liberty University, they were having financial problems, and other places they get these financial problems. And it's very strange how they get bailed out. And they go from having financial problems on the verge of collapse and debt, and they're bailed out, and all of a sudden they got huge amounts of money. And it's like Candace Owens asked a few times towards the end of the video, says, well, where is this money coming from? That'd be a very obvious question. Candace, you'll gain a lot of respect for her. At the very beginning of this video, it's kind of like, not so appealing and, maybe not. But when she starts getting into this stuff and you start following the thread with her, it's very shocking. And like old people like myself that remember a lot of this stuff that was going on. And it's like, wow, I remember this stuff. And so she's tying this recent history, together with what's going on now. Very shocking. I'm sorry, I got to keep saying that. Where's the money coming from? And I'll tell you what, in part of what this is, and she mixes another lead into this story, and it's about like what's going on with, young, underage, I guess, teenage pregnancies. And these Christian societies are acting like they're helping these young girls. And then, one of the questions is they ask the young soon-to-be mother, are you going to keep your baby or are you going to put it up for adoption? And they're trying to push them into adoption, to put their children up for adoption. And of course, maybe they get money for it too. But there is money in this, and don't ask me how I know this, but even back over 20 years ago, I remember it was I think if you go to the most Christian ones, and maybe not even tied to a lot of this corruption and stuff, even these orphanages that trying to supposedly find homes for these kids, and you go like some other countries and where the very little bit of money, the little teeny bits, that if you wanted a very inexpensive child, back then it was like a minimum of $30,000, so you pay money if you don't have children to get a child. And then I knew this from, like I said, that was over 20 years ago, 20 or 30 years ago. And some of these other places, it's even much, much more. And then I think they even bargain on what kind of a child it is, if it's Asian or if it's black or if it's white or all kinds of this stuff. And like I was telling you, and like I didn't even want to say this, but they have even a lot of these breeding things going on in, believe it or not, underground. They go down some steps and they're locked in, and it's like an environment where they keep women and they birth babies to be sold. And, and a lot of it looks into genetics of the mother and things like that, and photographs of the mother. And Candace even talks a lot about this. They photograph the mother, and it's not just for, selling her baby. It's for things that come afterwards. And even, I'd even hate to tell you that a president of the United States, not that he necessarily was involved in a lot of this, but he had organizations, and I guess it's pageants, and a lot of these girls, were being put up for pageants, I think maybe after they get a certain age or whatever. And even after these girls have had their babies, and what they do, even like there is mothers or prospective mothers, young girls that say they want to keep their child, and they find ways to trick these mothers out of the children. And they're taking these children and putting them up. You have to be lucky that they didn't kill, at least not the one that actually stepped forward and said, here she was in her later months of pregnancy. And they kept saying that, you have to make a decision very soon. Even though she'd made the decision, she's going to keep her baby. But they kept pressuring and saying, you have to make the decision very soon. And she is adamant she's keeping her baby. And so I guess maybe they gave her some kind of a shot or whatever. And then they induced labor in her. I don't know if they gave cesarean or whatever, but they induced labor. And then they said that the child, or that the woman had a miscarriage. So the child was alive, and then suddenly it was a miscarriage. And the truth is, they took her child. They induced labor. They gave her a shot to induce labor, and right away. And then right after that, they took this woman, this young girl at 13 years old, and they have different sections within this house, she said, and they moved her to this other section where they already had no contact. They were locked in their rooms, and you had a roommate. You're locked in the room in any case, and you're not allowed to be talking to any of the other girls locked in the other rooms. And she said there's up to like 15 young girls in similar situations from ages like 12 up to 21 years old. And then, but anyway, after the miscarriage, they took this young girl and isolated her and had called somebody, like a relative or somebody to come and pick her up, not allowing her to have any contact with any of the other girls. And then they got her out of this place. And it was not even from her area. And some of the women in there did not even speak English. So these young girls were taken from different states, for obvious reasons. And they were put into this place. And then they took the babies from them. And obviously, I'm just connecting a little bit of the dots. They sold these babies. And for who knows for what purposes and all that. And these are Christian organizations, supposedly, that were on the verge of collapse. And all of a sudden, things went the other way. They got a lot of money. Also, I'll just throw this in here right now. It's a kind of unrelated, but apparently maybe in this time period, I don't watch all of Candace Owens' videos anyway from before that. But, a lot of them, they have a lot of shocking stuff in there. But apparently they even know, in the Charlie Kirk assassination, that person that we see on the roof, they have this film footage, this person dressed in like tactical gear or whatever. And apparently that person, they know the person's name. And the person was there shooting photos. He was shooting, but he was not the shooter, and it wasn't Tyler Robinson. And why don't we hear any of this stuff from the FBI? This is really a cover-up operation. It's botched even far worse than the Kennedy one. And the Kennedy one was really excellently done, and they made lots of different leads to make everybody get distracted and say, oh, this was that and this was that, so you don't know what the heck is, and you just give up and you say, well, what was true and what is not true? But in this case, they didn't do as good of a job for this Charlie Kirk thing. Wow. Yeah, and the final quotes of Candace Owens are also very, very telling, and it's very honest stuff. Candace Owens has a very good working brain, and them trying to demonize her and say she's crazy and all this, it's really disgraceful that they do that. Somebody just asking questions, and who is she? She can't prosecute somebody. But, they can look up on some of these leads and these people, but they don't do that. Instead, they demonize her. I guess that's how that works, right? Just demonize the person so that everybody doesn't pay attention to it. And when I was watching this video, when I turned it on, it was up, I don't know, it was 4 hours old or whatever like that. And it had a certain amount of views. I think it had 200,000 views. And then I looked and it had 1 million something or other. And then I even saw, just like what I was telling you guys about my videos, that they were going backwards. So she had like 1 million, I don't know, 700 and something thousand views or whatever. And then it went down to like 600,000. So they took, I think it wasn't 100,000, but I think they took, I saw with my own eyes, they're taking at least 1,000 views from her. So that's the only thing that kind of keeps me going a lot of the time when I put out videos, is I know they're taking views away, but I just don't know how many. And I'm just a small channel, and it's like, well, why would they even bother with me? It's kind of laughable. That's why I got a smile on my face. It's just a little guy, a little channel like this. And I'm starting to think, well, how many views do I really get? I don't know. And sometimes they let it go, and then I get like 1,300 views, and I don't understand why that is. Why do some, and it's not even like any different type of videos than the other ones that I make. I'm thinking somebody posts them and I'm finding out it's not. People are telling me that it appears in their feed and they don't even understand why. Wow. This one will probably maybe get 70 views or something too, at least according to YouTube. So our final words. And I wrote it down as a quote. I had to keep going over it because he talks a little bit too fast. And then you have to replay a lot of the quotes. This is what her final quote was. I hope it's obvious to you now that they infiltrated the Christian faith. How many times have I gotten into that? I'm not even talking about the Spanish Inquisition. Remember about that time? And there was a lot of Jews back then for self-preservation infiltrated into the Christian faith. And I think that even goes back to this Benjamin Netanyahu. There's this stuff is really going on. This is incredible stuff what they're doing to us. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Benjamin Netanyahu, he's probably leading all of this stuff because the stuff that comes out of the guy's mouth, it's absolutely incredible. So I'll get to that though. So she said, I hope it's obvious to you now that they infiltrated the Christian faith. It's very apparent to me they infiltrated Christian organizations, and we've been under the spell of a psychological operation. These people are not pastors. These people are soldiers. And it's like, I don't know, is that Ben Shapiro or is it, I think she's talking about Jerry Falwell and a lot of these people. And there is many of them, a lot of them work for TPUSA. These people are not influencers. These people are soldiers. So they're not pastors and they're not influencers. They're soldiers, just like Ben Shapiro. And unfortunately, Charlie Kirk was playing around along with that for quite a long time. And he realized it, and that's why it was over for Charlie. She says, the war is for your mind. And you can recognize this very simply. You cannot be a Christian and ignore what happens in Gaza. You can't be a Christian and pretend that's okay. You cannot be a Christian and not pursue truth or try to demonize those who pursue it. I hope this episode has woken a lot of people up to how severely all of us have been manipulated, myself included. I will never unsee this, and it is a cancer, and it is. And this has been going on for quite some time. And I was mentioning this book before, Every Spy a Prince. And if you want to look for it, there's the authors down there, some Israelis. And the strange thing is, when I was reading this book, I was believing that this was an admission to all of the dirty and the nasty things that the intelligence or operations, or what they call ISIS, the real definition of ISIS, Israeli Secret Intelligence Services, was implicating on everybody. I was thinking, oh, this is an admission of all of the crap that they do. But when you get towards the end there, the person who is an intelligence operative admits that they're proud of it. They are proud of all of this stuff. They're proud of how they have manipulated Christians. They've already been going after the Muslims, but they've manipulated Christians to hate and to kill Muslims. And before that time, you can even look in old, like before what this Zionism started occurring, the Muslims and Christians got along together, very much like they still do in Russia. They have picnics together, and the imam and the Christian priests are friends, and they meet together, and they have picnics together with the Christians and the Muslims. And yet in the West, particularly in the United States, the whole mission has worked to get Christians, particularly, to hate Muslims. And then you're seeing this, and a lot of people still are looking at this Mamdani, and I'm not completely sure. Maybe the problem with him is a lot of it is his economics. like communism. But he seems to be a humanistic type of person. And it's all just shocking stuff. But you're supposed to still hate Muslims, and you're supposed to be really itching to go pick up a gun and go kill Muslims. And it reminds me of a quote, like I've told you in other videos, of, I don't know where this is at, but I guess this is treasured writings. I'm not saying holy writings of the Muslims. And it's kind of telling. And it's not that it's always true. That's why it's not holy writings, I believe. But they say that it's a message to Muslims, and they said, the Christians are your friends. The Jews are your friends. But the Jews and Christians that are friends are your enemies. And I think a lot of that goes towards the fact is, unfortunately, a lot of, and I think they're speaking particularly of Zionist Jews, that they have a seething hatred of Jesus. And it doesn't make sense to see why Christians who are supposed to love Jesus would really like people to the point of loving these people and be subservient to people that have a firm hatred of Jesus. And it's very strange that Muslims love Jesus. I guess in the Muslim church, they love Muhammad more, but Jesus comes in second and to them. And you're a Christian, you're supposed to hate Muslims because of that. But you're supposed to love the people that have a seething hatred of Jesus over people that see Jesus in second place. And it's just like the two, the Shia and the Sunni. One believes in Abu Bakr, and one believes the inheritor of the church was Ali. So that's a difference, and they kind of have friction amongst each other. And it's very unusual how there are different forces that get all of us to hate each other and to go against each other, maybe even killing each other. And sometimes the differences are very small. I wonder who's behind all that. It's incredible. Anyway, that was to get out of that. Where was I? So, yeah, after watching this video, it triggered me a little bit also when I was thinking of this vision, and it was, I don't know, when was that? It was, I don't know, maybe it was a month ago? Benjamin Netanyahu getting up in front of a camera, and he's talking about, like Candace Owens. He was trying to indicate Candace Owens more than anything else. I don't know if he said her name, but he was like making light of the fact that, or actually fabricating this notion of blood libel. And somebody even wrote a comment to me, obviously it's somebody working for Israel, on mine, and said, I'm guilty of a blood libel. And then I'm thinking, well, what really is that? I looked it up, and a blood libel is believing that what is it? That Jews drink the blood of Christians. And it's like, that sounds ridiculous, totally ridiculous. And apparently somebody had made that up maybe hundreds of years ago. And Benjamin Netanyahu was trying to say that there's people today that believe in this crap. And of course, nobody buys that. But when you have this power like Donald Trump, he just keeps saying something and maybe gets the news agencies to also say it, and gets their minions out there in the internet and the social media to say it, that it becomes true. When it's said enough, that it becomes the truth, And it's like, that's probably why somebody said that to me, and it's like, what is this crap? But it looks like it's not taking shape. It's not getting a hold, So that's the next, that was like another little thing. I guess they're trying to get something to replace anti-Semite. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And it's to get your mind all mixed up. And just like Candace Owens says, it's a battle for your mind. And it's like, need I say the words like an info war? And then you talk about Alex Jones. Alex Jones got heavily into debt, $1 billion. And then he started saying that Candace Owens, I don't think he ever said she's Mossad. because that would be really ridiculous, because she talks bad about the Mossad. But no, Candace Owens is the deep state. And I don't know, liberal or I don't really know. It's just unbelievable. And Candace Owens, very early on, was working for Alex Jones, even on his show. And he really admired her. And Candace Owens doesn't really ever attack Alex Jones. So why would he be spitting hatred and vinegar against Candace Owens? And who did Candace Owens offend? Who did Candace Owens go after? Israel. Maybe that tells you why. I tell you what, it seems to me a lot of time, and I don't even understand what this is. I mean, somebody can maybe put it all together. Alex Jones, in part, he apparently works for Israel, in part. He's allowed to go through a lot of these other things that are going on. And of course, they took him off of YouTube and all this sort of thing. But he's been very light on Israel. Sure, he talks about Israel. But, you got to, for appearances, you have to go after Israel at least a little bit, because everybody is seeing this, and the cat is out of the bag and the cat is running around and everybody sees the cat. So I guess Alex Jones has to play in that as well. Absolutely and unbelievable. Yeah. Blood libel stuff, incredible. And one thing I looked it up a little bit a while ago, and I kind of forgot about it, a lot of this stuff, because it probably is untrue. But remember, they had and it was kind of big news for a while, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And I don't think that Benjamin Netanyahu even evoked that, or invoked this stuff, invoked it, because that should be something as well. And it was somebody trying to expose a conspiracy that the Jews are trying to control the world's media, and control the governments and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, and this comes from as late as even 1899 or so. I'm not exactly sure when it first started making the scene, but it was even from before that. And like I said, it's probably some sort of a fake conspiracy sort of a thing. So don't get the impression that I'm trying to say it's all true and it really exists. But it was supposed to be something like some Jews wrote and maybe circulated amongst rabbis or something, that their mission is to take over the world and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, but it's like it is ridiculous. So I don't know, maybe there is some sort of a different sort of a truth to it. I'm not a literature detective. It would be very interesting to look into it a lot more. Okay. I was going to tell you about what it said on her thumbnail, Candace Owens' thumbnail, and it says, "Don't F with cats," basically is what it says on there. And it's incredible, because she talks about somebody got somebody's cat and killed their cat and cooked it and served it to the person for lunch and all that. And I'll tell you what happened to me, and I've mentioned it before. I probably didn't mention all the little details of it, because it kind of triggered me when Candace Owens mentioned this. But the wife of a politician who was trying to get the biggest district within St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and hey, I'll say the guy's name. His name was Beresford Phillips. And his wife seemed to be a decent lady. She had a bakery. And this guy was a insurance salesman by profession. He was kind of big in the party. And he would do dastardly things. And I've heard of other things that this guy had done. Signing like papers and things, putting an extra zero to get extra money, on something about building materials, to get more money back. It was plagiarism sort of a thing. It was a dastardly guy. But anyway, the guy's wife asked me, "Oh, who did you vote for in this last election?" And I said, well, I admit I didn't vote for her husband, and it's because, and I didn't really know so much about him really at that time. But anyway, she started basically kind of saying, "Oh, well, we care about education, all that sort of thing." And I don't know, I didn't vote for for that politician who happened at that time to be the the prime minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines anyway. So I voted for the other guy in our region. And so they didn't like that. So anyway, her husband comes out, who was the politician, and he's saying a bunch of things to me, actually starting out kind of calm and all that. And I said, the education sort of ding and all that, I didn't like. And then he didn't like this, so he said, "You're probably a wanted criminal." He said, like from the U.S. And he was very yelling at me. And I said, "And you're probably a homosexual." And then he raised his hand back, said, "Well, I'm going to hit you," or whatever, some sort of a deal like this. And a worker, one of, actually practically my only farm worker, he was coming by at that time. And this guy was getting really hot. And I wasn't very happy. And to me, it was only an argument at that time. But anyway, this farm worker of mine, he grabs me and he starts leading me away. He says, "Oh, no, whatever, like this." And so I went with my worker guy. And the lady was renting a building next to this house. And the house was a guy that got shot, that he was the guy that was cheating me on coffee that I told you about in one other video. My neighbor is what he was. We had a lot in between that house and the house that I lived in. So anyway, the guy's leading me away towards where I live. And the guy runs into his house, this other guy, who was smuggling drugs. He smuggled drugs from South America into the United States on a ship. I'll just be plain. The guy was shot and killed anyway a couple months ago, cheating some people. Anyway, went into his house. I can tell you a lot about this. It's an exciting country I lived in. I'm sorry, you guys, tell you all these crazy stories. But anyway, getting towards the place where I lived, the guy had run into his house and he got a gun out. He went to the end of his driveway and he's firing this gun. Bam, bam, because this guy hated me too. Partly because of this coffee thing, that he was trying to cheat me out of the coffee. He cheated me. He made a big mistake, and then he wanted to cheat me out of the money. I paid him half of the money, even though I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing, just because I asked him to do the deal for me to get some coffee, Panamanian coffee, because he goes down and he gets appliances, refrigerators and washing machines and stuff, and he brings it back and he marks it up. He buys them in the Panama Canal Zone, and he brought them up, and he would sell them, with making a profit. And then that's at the same time, he would pay people off in the customs not to search his containers. So that's why they didn't find the coffee that he smuggled in. And if they found the coffee, it had all kinds of diseases and insects in it, and bugs crawling around inside of this. It was garbage. It was literally garbage. And if they would have found that, they would have seized it from him. They would have had to burn it because it had all these insects. And who knows, bringing it from another country. And so he would wait to get his containers open. So he would ship like sometimes 2 containers. He would wait until his people that he had contacts that he paid off at the port would be there to open up the containers. And of course, these people are paid off by him. And the reason why he would wait till his people would be the ones inspecting the containers is because he would smuggle things. And I don't know that he was smuggling drugs. He was very possibly smuggling drugs as well. But he was smuggling guns. So he had guns. He would get to his house and he was selling guns in the country. And it's like, how do I know that? And how do people in the whole area know that, but the government doesn't know? And I really don't know about that. But he was smuggling weapons in. And obviously, like, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's why somebody came. And I don't know, he was like around, was he about my age? Maybe he was a couple of years older than me. And overweight type of guy. And he looked like Jabba the Hutt, like I said. Very much like Jabba the Hutt. My wife said, he reminds me of Jabba the Hutt. He just sits in his chair with his belly hanging out and make kind of deals with stuff like that with people. And for the most part, I could tell you a lot about him. I know so many things about this guy. But even a lot of these guns would kill people on the island. So a lot of murders and things were done with these guns. and he had a, I don't know if that was a stepson. Maybe it was his real son. It was actually his real. No, that was his. No, I think it was a stepson. Anyway, the stepson had taken some of these guns and I believe sold it, and in there. And this guy was he had two younger sons. I don't know one of them. I mean, it was depending on when I moved in. And of course, those sons got got older and older too. And they were even big guys, but they were small when I moved into that place. But the other son, and anyway, but he had sold some guns to people because there's a lot of drugs smuggling in that country, marijuana for the most part, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The very big stories I could tell you. I'll add this to right now. Unfortunately, I was going to try to make a short video, but since I'm on this topic right now. So the United States would go into that country anyway in November, in the older years. That was before I got there. And they would have incendiary helicopters and they would burn the marijuana fields. And the people that were doing these marijuana growing there, most of them, the people controlling it were based in Barbados. And they had guns, they had machine guns on that. And the government couldn't go in there because the people were far better armed on this tiny island up in the mountains near the volcano. And the quality was so high, and it competed with, in the earlier years, with the United States marijuana, which there might be still, doing. And so that's why the United States would come there, like every year around November, and they would burn all the marijuana fields up there in the mountains, because it competed with the U.S. marijuana, because it was much better in St. Vincent than there. And so, yeah, it's I could tell you so many stories, CIA people in there and monitoring they had speedboats monitoring, and as far as I know, it was marijuana. I knew that it was drugs, but I don't know, was it cocaine as well coming from there? But they would take it like even from St. Vincent, that island, to St. Lucia, which is the next island, and I think it would leapfrog up to the Caribbean islands, into places where the United States maybe could get it, and of course then taken to the United States or wherever, maybe to Europe or whatever. So that was the drug trade back then. And like I said, I saw former U.S. military people there, and what they did is they infiltrated into Christianity. That guy was a Catholic priest, but what kind of a priest doesn't do that much with religion, even though he actually had, officially he was doing there, and he actually probably had the training, but he was far more interested in the drug trade. So he would be up hiking somewhere in the area close to the marijuana fields all the time, and then he would have boat rides in between St. Lucia and St. Vincent, always going around there, just seeing what's going on, I guess. And he was a big muscular type of guy, former military, he's even said that. I've met him on occasions of too, but I didn't want to press too much because I knew pretty much very early on that this guy was a U.S. intelligence operative. And like I said, back in the old days, they had this book, like I said, Confessions from an Economic Hitman, by Perkins, last name Perkins. Anyway, but the CIA would infiltrate, and then, but it was the religious organizations when I was down there, because I saw it with my own eyes, and I saw them, even the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the Catholic Church. They would come from the United States, and just surprise. Anyway, but let's keep going, get into these tangents. But just like what Candace Owens said, they've infiltrated into the churches, and that is CIA that I was talking about. And CIA is linked with Mossad very much. And gosh, this is all incredible stuff. I mean, it's right in front of our faces. It's, they can piss right in your face and tell you it's raining. It's just unbelievable. So anyway, how did I get onto there where this guy killed my cats? One of the cats was and like you do get bonds with animals. I had a black cat, and that was the first one, and they took her, and I don't even know what happened to her. They took her the first night, and the next night they took the mother. That was my second favorite cat. And this cat loved me so much, the mother cat. And, we have such a bond with our cats. It's unbelievable that the mother cat, my wife was in over here in Belarus at that time, and I was with the cats, and with that cat, and it was pregnant, and when it was having its babies, it came to me, and I was relaxing, at that time I was into farming and into my own dental technician, making dentures sort of thing, and I was relaxing. I laid a little bit on the couch, and the cat came, and it laid on me, and it was like, oh, and it started having its babies on top of me. It trusted me that much that it would have its kittens right on top of me. And I moved it. I had an area kind of ready, that it was dark, because the cats, I think it has to be kind of dark because cats don't have their eyes open and all that. So, it was messy on me anyway. So I carried her and put her into this other area, with a blanket and things like that there. And, but anyway, and then the firstborn was the black cat, the one that she was having birth on me with. And that cat is the cat that I had the really special bond with. And that this politician, because I didn't vote for him, that's why I guess he had somebody sent to kill my cats. And that's why this triggered me, this video from Candace Owens. I'm sorry. Hope this was interesting for you guys. Let me know if it is, because I don't like, if I'm going into these kind of tangent things and telling you about this stuff, maybe it's so uninteresting to you guys, and maybe I should just keep it all to myself. So let's keep going here. Anyway, I like that. Don't F with cats. Thanks, Candace. Okay. And there was another video I was watching, and it's Candace mentioned Megyn Kelly in her video, and I watched this video also, and it was I don't even know, it was something like Megyn Kelly, as apparently she is turning to. I don't know, sometimes I think a lot of these people are faking it, they fake this and that, but maybe Megyn Kelly isn't. So in the vid from the Young Turks, I'll try to post that too. They mention what I've been telling you for a long time, that the Young Turks are saying this. And it's I don't know, they probably knew this stuff, but they're mentioning that, Israel actually controls the corporate media in America. And Megyn Kelly is having some sort of a realization. And it's like, well, how come she didn't know this? Has nobody ever told her this? Or something like that. But the Young Turks are talking about, when you start looking at the corporate media, as if it's Fox or CNN or any of these people, all of them, every single one of them, if they are not owned by proxies of Israel that are obviously Jewish, obviously Zionist, then they are controlled by them on their boards and everything. And it's been that way for a very long time. And it's not just Hollywood, Disney, the banks, the Federal Reserve, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, all of them are controlled by the same people. And it's like, what is going on? Politics, in the courts all over. And then I was thinking, that George Soros has a lot of this, but George Soros says he's atheist, that he's not even Jewish, and he used to turn Jews in to the Nazis. And then you get even more confused when you're seeing, like Budanov, when he just got this position in, he got promoted under Zelensky. And Budanov is a known Nazi. And I'm sitting here looking and saying, what is going on? And he was blessed by a rabbi, a Jewish rabbi, and they even show him. He's bowing, and it's not AI. It was a real photo. In this rabbi with Budanov. So Budanov is probably also Jewish, but you can be Jew and Nazi at the same time. And it makes you think of this Kolomoisky. He's the one that made Zelensky. He made Zelensky, put him on this thing, servant of the people and all that. He built up, and it was planned to get Zelensky exactly where he is at. And he's a figurehead. Zelensky doesn't have the faintest idea what he's doing. A lot of people have said that. His only mission is to go around and beg for money. For what? And most of that is not even going really into the defense of Ukraine. And so what is this stuff that's going on? And Kolomoisky, he is the guy that virtually built the Azov battalion, all of these Nazis. Kolomoisky is Jewish. He's a Jew that built Nazi organizations. I don't know how confused we have to be. And I thought that the Jews didn't like the Nazis. I mean, what's going on here? Can somebody please tie this together? Candace, please, somebody send this to Candace and tell her, what is going on? Why does this work this way? Can you make the dots and connect them? Because I can't get this. I really can't get this. It's just incredible. But anyway, Megyn Kelly, they're talking about her on the Young Turks, and it's like, she said that she's waking up. I think she even said that, or maybe people said that about her. I can't remember. I don't think I have any quotes from her. But she admits that she's been propagandized about Israel. I don't know if she said by Israel. And Muslims too. And that, like I was just saying, that we're told we have to hate Muslims. And that's just how it has to be. And all of these lies. And even the Israelis, it's in Israel too. And there's forces in Israel. And that's probably a lot of where it even started, is to even teach the Israelis that the Muslims are your enemies and all this. And I remember even some of the lies, like they said that it's in the Quran, which it isn't, that if you do a suicide bombing, that you will go to heaven and be blessed with like 20 virgins or 30, 40 virgins or something like that. And it's like, it has nothing to do, it isn't in the Quran. It has nothing to do with the Quran. And I think I've mentioned this before, how that comes about. And it might even be in the Haditha. And I guess that is semi-holy writings by the Muslims. And I guess it's writing about Muhammad's life. So there were people, scholars there. Muhammad couldn't write. He couldn't read or write himself. And so people with certain incidences, I guess they would take records as it happened of what was going on in Muhammad's life at that time. And I believe at one time there was some very wealthy business person, I guess, and it was at some oasis. And, Muhammad was sitting there, and some person who was not a Muslim, some Arabic person or whatever. And if I'm remembering all of this correctly, and I know that I'm very close, but it may be off a little bit, but the person asked Muhammad, what is it like in heaven? And this person had a lot of women, and he loved, going, for women and all of this. And I guess it's just like what is these women that are being trafficked, somehow, like I was mentioning, and as well as through Epstein, I guess, it's probably young women, virgins, I guess. And Muhammad said to this guy, when a guy asked, so what's it like in heaven? And I think Muhammad, looked at him and tried to get into his world, and said it is like having 30 virgins or something like that, or whatever, something like that. He's appealing not to the world, to this world, to the worldly world, but maybe to this guy's, in his mental world of what is great, or whatever. I guess that's how that was said. I don't know. It's probably said a lot better than I just said it, but that's what that's all about. And I'll tell you about another incident that actually, that's good. This is definitely over an hour, but another incident of what happened to me while I was in the Caribbean, and I might have mentioned this before in other videos. I was meeting with some investors. One guy, what was he? 30, maybe 32, I don't know, younger guy. One guy was 70 something, a little bit, tall guy was 70, and he was an investor. And these guys had, worth some millions. Each one is worth maybe 2.5. Well, one guy was worth at least 2.5. I know because I saw it online. I won't say his name. He's been led astray sort of in a way. I don't know where he's at right now. But anyway, and the other guy probably worth a little bit more. And So we're sitting down, and there's a woman there, and she's working for the government of Canada, and she's there doing some projects for, that's like charity projects for education for the Canadian government on that island. And well, how old was she? She's probably a little bit younger than me, kind of attractive lady and all that. I couldn't believe that a woman was right there in this kind of a conversation. And these guys were telling me about the appeal of young girls, like, and I'm talking about 13, 14 maybe, very young girls. And I was telling them they don't, that's just not appealing to me at all, And they were like asking why. Even she was asking me, well, why? Why isn't that not appealing to you? And it's like they were telling me that it is great. Even the lady was, and I'm thinking, why are they talking like this in front of this lady like this? About having sex with young girls. I couldn't even believe it. One of those investors, guys, he got one young black girl pregnant on that island. And of course, he was paying some money. Otherwise, he wouldn't be allowed to come to the island. I don't know what else he's been into or whatever like that. And I was even with him at some other place, and there was a young, pretty girl kind of propositioning both of us, me, the old guy, and me, that she wanted to do something with us, and she was coming out and saying it, right? You look at me right now and say, ooh, who would want to have anything to do with you? And this guy was older, but he was a tall guy. And actually, there was another woman. I think it's money. I think because he looked like he had money, and he had money, and they're probably interested mostly in money and things like that. So, but there was another girl, and I thought she was cute, and I said she was cute, and she was going for him too. This old guy. This was at some time. It's a place, a social place, and you can have drinks, and it's in the open, and people walking by, and all that kind of stuff. But it was just some weird incidences. And I don't know, I can tell you some other things about these two investor guys too, but nothing with any women I didn't. They might have had a few little things or whatever. Never did, and we would go onto different parts of the island, and they would buy the beer and stuff like that. And it was like, it was mostly just on beer runs, and, they would, anyway. But, that's how the life is, and sometimes with investors and things like that. But anyhow, like I said, if you guys don't like these kind of stories, you let me know, and I won't be saying anything about them. If that's all right, I don't know. It's just some funny stuff. I'm sure a lot of people want to know what it's like in the world with these investors, some millionaires and things like that. And I'll tell you what, even if I never did anything like this, I tell you, a lot of sex involved. I tell you what, a lot of these guys propositioning at least and all that. Oh my God. Rich people. And it's frightening, and it's like, gosh, I don't really want to go there. Even, I'll tell you what, even high politicians and things after your own wife. And I know that from experience, things like that. But so anyway, my wife wouldn't want me to be talking about this stuff. Okay, people, anyway, sorry again about a long video. And like I said, hope it was interesting to you guys. And you have to watch those videos, and I have to, who knows, maybe waiting 12 hours. I don't even know why the heck that is until this video uploads. I have to sit there, and hopefully it's not going to be late into the night. Here it's still in the morning here in in Belarus. Okay, so thanks for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.